If Texas loses to Mississippi State tomorrow, heads are going to roll. I'll tell you why on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You were locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK, Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Just like there's more to every player, more dedication, more attention to detail, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Stay tuned later in the episode for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. It's Mazda, move and be moved. We'll get to some keys to the game and also 3 Longhorns who need to step up in Starkville tomorrow. But first, I think it's safe to say that tomorrow is a must-win game for our Texas Longhorns. And I think it's also safe to say that a loss tomorrow would be borderline catastrophic, not only for the short term of Texas football, but for the long term as well. Because a loss tomorrow would likely mean that some big changes are going to need to happen soon. Let's start with the must-win part of that. We'll start with the obvious here. A Texas loss likely puts an end to the Longhorns' hopes of making it back to the college football playoff and getting back to the SEC championship game, right? A loss would be number 3 on the season, number 2 in the SEC. You look back at last year's 12-team playoff, the only 3-loss team that got in was Clemson. They only made it because they won the ACC. They only had one conference loss. They won their conference championship. They were able to get that 12th and final seed. There were no at-large teams that got in with 3 losses last year. And I get it. This would only be Texas's second SEC loss, but look around the conference right now. 2 teams have yet to lose a conference game, and 6 teams have only lost once. That's half the league right there with 0 or 1 losses in SEC play. So the odds of Texas sneaking in with 2 losses are not super high. And come on, if Texas loses against Mississippi State, are we really expecting them to run the table in the month of November? Didn't think so. And that's what they're going to need to do to even have a chance to get to Atlanta. So from that standpoint, it's a game that the Longhorns can't afford to lose. Steve Sarkisian has called this an SEC championship game, and he's right, because if you want to have the chance to win an SEC title this year, you've got to win this game. That was the mindset going into Kentucky last week. That's the mindset going into Mississippi this week. It is survive and advance right now for these 2025 Texas Longhorns. So that's the obvious stuff. But there are a few reasons why tomorrow's game just means more. You're welcome, SEC. I want some royalties for that. I don't want to make it sound like losing to 2025 Mississippi State is the same as Charlie Strong losing to Kansas in 2016 or Steve Sarkisian losing to Kansas in 2021. How did we lose to them twice? Sorry to bring that up on a Friday. Mississippi State this year is not nearly as bad as either of those 2 Jayhawks teams are. Hell, Mississippi State beat Arizona State earlier this year. They took Tennessee to overtime a couple of weeks ago. They should have beat Florida in the swamp just last weekend. They are a much improved team from the 2-10 squad that they were in 2024. But the reality is still the reality. Mississippi State hasn't won a conference game in more than 2 years. They've lost 15 straight in the SEC. That is the longest active streak for consecutive conference losses of any team in college football, regardless of league. Kentucky is second in that stat, by the way. You almost were their slump buster last week. Mississippi State is hoping that you can be their slump buster this week. That's not what any Texas fan is looking for. Go back to the preseason SEC poll. I think we're all aware at this point that preseason polls don't mean a whole lot. I think Texas fans have known that for a while. This year, I mean, see Penn State, see Clemson. Texas isn't alone. It's teams that had much higher expectations than what they've been able to deliver on the field so far this fall. But go back to the preseason poll in the SEC. The Longhorns were picked to finish first. You know who was picked to finish last? Mississippi State. by a wide margin. The difference between Kentucky at 15 and Hail State at 16 was big. Again, preseason polls, they're for the preseason. They don't have any actual bearing on what happens on Saturdays. But Texas was supposed to win the league this year. If you're out losing to what was supposed to be the worst team, universally thought as the worst team in the conference, that's a major problem, and that would be a major embarrassment. And as I mentioned in the tease of this segment right at the top of the show, if Texas loses in Starkville, heads are going to roll. People are going to lose their job. I'm not talking about during the season. I don't think anyone's getting fired on Sunday, but I'm talking about right after the season. Because, again, if you lose to Mississippi State, look at the rest of the schedule. Top 10 Vanderbilt next weekend, at top 10 Georgia in your next game following that. You got top 10 A&M coming to town. Of course, Arkansas coming to town as well. You can't beat this team. Who are you going to beat out of those Final Four? You slip up in Stark Vegas, there's at least one more loss coming, which that would be number 4. And it's hard to fathom Texas going 3-1 in that stretch of games. So maybe a 5th loss, potentially even a 6th loss in there. That's probably worst case scenario. But again, if you barely beat Kentucky and we're talking about losing to Mississippi State, the teams that were picked to finish 15th and 16th in the SEC, who are you going to beat in November? Maybe outside of Arkansas. And even Arkansas isn't a gimme. They could score some points. Texas is going to have to put something up on the scoreboard to beat the Hogs in November. So you can't go from 12-2, winning the Big 12, making it to the playoff in 2023, and then 13-3, making the SEC title game, winning 2 playoff games in 2024, to 8-4, 7-5, 6-6. You can't do that without anything happening. You just can't. And again, Texas could lose by 30 tomorrow. God forbid. Nobody is getting the axe on Sunday. But I'll tell you what, any sort of loss tomorrow, whether it's by 1 or 30, Chris Del Conte's phone is going to be ringing off the hook from big money donors who are calling for change and calling for jobs. And I could tell you the Locked On Longhorns post-game show, there's going to be a lot of y'all commenting the same thing. And I know Steve Sarkisian doesn't want to make changes. He loves his assistant coaches. He loves his coordinators. But again, you can't go from 12-2, 13-3 to 7-5 and say, hey, we're going to run it back. Sorry, just a bad year, but trust us, we'll get it right. Wrong. That's not how it works here. Whether you agree with it or not, I think we all know that that is not how it works at the University of Texas. And it's not just Texas. Look at all of the head coaches getting fired right now. Texas ain't the only place that operates like that. This is a very what have you done for me lately sport. And look, I'm not saying anything will or should happen to Steve Sarkisian. I think he's absolutely earned the chance to get this thing turned around, even if the worst case scenario does happen and Texas finishes the season on a very low. Sark's fine. He should be fine. But Kyle Flood, AJ Milwee, Chad Scott, Chris Jackson, notice how I'm only bringing up offensive coaches here. Jeff Banks' job is safe because, well, he's the special teams coordinator. But my God, Texas has not gotten anything from its tight ends this year. Those guys, they're not going to get that chance. Sark's going to get the opportunity to clean it up. The other guys, sorry, this is the worst offense in the Steve Sarkisian era by far, from a yardage standpoint, from a point standpoint, from an eye test standpoint. It's bad. And somebody has to be held accountable if things continue down this path. If they don't, Texas turns it around. They start scoring some points. Arch looks better. Then this whole segment is a waste of time. And I hope that it is, because I think that's what we all want to happen, right? Big turnaround for the offense. Texas runs the table. They make it back to the playoff. We'll all be celebrating if that's the case. But again, if this trend of horrible offense continues and that leads to multiple losses in the last 5 regular season games, somebody's got to go. There's not enough development happening on that side of the football. There are some guys stealing money right now on the offensive staff. Somebody has to be held accountable. So a win tomorrow doesn't guarantee that all of those guys will be returning in 2026. I get that. Texas has to show a lot more here in 2025. But a loss tomorrow probably gets the ball rolling on some hard conversations on campus. As Al Davis just once said, Just win, baby. I don't like having these types of conversations. Winning is a lot more fun than losing. As Augie Garrido once said, the world treats winners a lot different than it treats losers. I'll throw my own quote. Locked On Longhorns shows about winners are a lot different than shows about losers. Let's get a dub tomorrow and maybe string a few more together so we don't have to go back to this ever again. But that's the reality. Massive game for Texas for the short term here in 2025, but also for the long term for some of these coaches on this staff. All right, the objective is simple. Get a dub. How do the Longhorns make it happen? Some keys to a Longhorn victory coming up next on Locked On Longhorns. But first, this episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, I'm going to give this to Ryan Niblett for the second consecutive week, right? Last week, he got some love for the 75-yard punt return touchdown against Oklahoma. This week, he had two great punt returns, but the 45-yarder that set up Texas's only offensive score of the game in Lexington, that was massive. He has been moving the game forward for Texas. Heck, he's been moving the offense forward. He has been a huge factor for the Longhorns, and he's earned this honor. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. It's Mazda. Move and be moved. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Even though Texas won last week, this is a major get-right game for the Longhorn offense, and we're going to go through some keys to victory here. Most of these keys to victory are on the offensive side of the football, and just about all of them involve doing the exact opposite of what was done in Lexington last Saturday. We will start with number one. Get some semblance of a run game going. Last year, in the 35-13 win over Mississippi State here in Austin, Texas ran it 31 times for 198 yards. I'd love for that to happen. I think we'd all sign up for that to happen. Guess what? That ain't going to happen. This offensive line, these running backs, more so the offensive line, I think they're not capable of doing that. So what can they do? If they can't get to a $198, what can happen? Well, how about they do what they did against Oklahoma? Mississippi State's defensive line is not nearly as good as what Texas saw in Dallas. Against the Sooners, 136 yards rushing, 35 carries. That's 3.9 yards a clip. Nothing crazy at all, but it was something. You look at the Horns' other two SEC games, 50 yards as a team on 2 yards a carry against Florida, 47 yards on 1.7 per tote at Kentucky. Which of these three games did Texas look the best? Yeah, right. C.J. Baxter's probable. That could help. That should help. The hope is that he returns. I don't expect him to get 15 to 20 carries, but can he spell Trey Wisner? Can he get 5 to 10 touches on offense? And can he make some things happen? Can he be an upgrade over James Simon and Christian Clark? Haven't seen a ton from those guys yet this year. Obviously, Jarrett Gibson no longer with the program. C.J. Baxter, number one, can he just stay healthy for a 4-quarter football game? Number two, can he give you a little some kind of spark with the rushing attack? Having Wisner and Baxter healthy should make things a little bit easier for Texas to get things going on the ground. Now, it all depends on the offensive line. Lord have mercy. The good news for Texas, not only is Mississippi State's defensive front way worse than OU's, it's their biggest weakness. They've been struggling stopping the run this year. They are 101st in the country in run defense, giving up an average of 181 yards per game on the ground. I'm asking for 130. I don't ask for much. Don't accuse me of asking for 2. I'm asking for 50 yards less than what they typically give up this season. 180. Oh my God, that'd be amazing. 130, please. Can we just do that? Mississippi State, 15th in the SEC, by the way, in rush defense, ahead of only Arkansas, who, of course, has already fired their coach. Goes to show you how the Bulldogs have been with that part of their team. Number 2, key to the game. Make the easy. This is more of an Arch Manning thing than anybody else. When Arch does have a clean pocket And when there is a wide receiver that's open, he's got to hit him. Too many times last week, too many times this season where he just hasn't been able to make the easy throws. There were some simple ones last week. Now, the good news is Arch Manning is doing a much better job of identifying where to go with the football. I think his reads are a lot better as of late than they were at the beginning of the year, but the accuracy is way too inconsistent. And that's nice. You can know where to throw the football. If you can't actually throw it there, then what good does it do for you? I mean, last week alone, the miss to Jack Endries, the 2 misses to Wingo, right? One on the shallow cross early on, the dirt ball in the fourth quarter, Emmett Mosley, the 5th on that slant over the middle. Like, there's too many of those at this stage in Arch's career, in this stage in the season. If your coach is going to scheme somebody open, which Sark hasn't been great at that this year, but there have been enough open receivers. There are going to be some guys breaking open tomorrow. If he does that, you got to take advantage. If your offensive line actually does hold up for more than 2 seconds, you have to take advantage. Yes, the O-line is giving up pressures on about 50% of Arch Manning's dropbacks. Way too many. Well, that means 50% of your pockets are clean. What are you going to do on those plays? No easy misses. Please, big key for a Texas dub. Number 3, less cowbell. I've got a fever, and the only prescription is less cowbell. That's what it is for Texas. Davis Wade is going to be rocking tomorrow, and those cowbells are going to be blaring all game long. For once, again, I don't think I'm asking for very much. For once in a game away from Austin, can the Longhorns start fast? Can they do something to take an opposing crowd out of the game? Texas 1-2 in true road games so far. Kind of feels like 0-3 with what happened in Lexington last week. And of course, they had an ugly start against Oklahoma too. Won that game, but the first half, not very pretty for Texas. Yesterday, Steve Sarkisian was asked about his team's sluggish starts, and he compared the opening script struggles to going to grandma's house for Christmas. And when the tree is lit up, there's that one blinking light that is burnt out, and you can't help but pay attention to it. That was the comparison Sark used yesterday. I couldn't come up with that. I don't know how the hell he came up with that. Don't ask me. I have no clue. He said, quote, "I wish I could say it's one thing or one group or one player. That isn't the case. I feel like we just haven't gotten all 11 to execute it all exactly the way we wanted." End quote. Again, the metaphor, your guess is as good as mine. But I do know the bulbs need to be working tomorrow. Every bulb needs to be working tomorrow. And Sark's right. It's not just been like one player who's been consistently screwing up at the starts of games. It's been equal opportunity suckage for Texas on offense early on. I would like for that to change. Please. Not asking for much. And then I'll give one more key, one for the defense. Get off the field. Like, look. What Texas did last week, you hold anybody to 13 points in a 5-quarter game. That's impressive, especially on the road. And we've praised the defense all week long here on Locked On Longhorns. But they were a part of Kentucky holding the football for nearly 40 minutes last Saturday. Gave up 395 yards. Cutter Boley was 31 of 39 throwing the football. Like what Arch Manning did against Oklahoma. That's sort of what Cutter Boley did last week against Texas. Very efficient. Not a lot of misses for him. He was able to get comfortable against this Longhorn defense. The Wildcats ran it for $137. Of course, Texas had a few takeaway opportunities that they missed. They did have an interception, but I mean, 4 or 5 balls on the turf? A couple on defense, couple on special teams that Texas just couldn't recover. It'd be nice to get a couple of those. Texas had a couple of sack opportunities on Cutter Boley that they missed. Like, look, again, they and the special teams were the reason Texas beat Kentucky. But a few more splash plays and just a few less plays overall, getting off the field, that wouldn't hurt. We know this Texas offense needs all the help it can get. The defense going more above and more beyond is something that would be nice for Texas against a solid Mississippi State offense that in its 4 home games this year is averaging 39 points per game. Played a couple of nobodies in that stretch, but they did score 34 against Tennessee a couple of weeks ago in their one home SEC game. So they can move, they can score. It'll be a challenge for this defense. Hopefully they can make a couple of big plays to spur a Texas victory. All right. I'll take your thoughts. Would love your comments. Keys to the game. Do you agree with mine? Do you have some others? What say you? Those are keys for a Texas dub. What about some players who need to step up for the Longhorns to get a victory tomorrow. We'll talk about 3 guys who are really, really important that maybe aren't getting talked about enough next on Locked On Longhorns. Oh, it's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For the Longhorns, Colin Simmons delivered in a big way. About 3 sacks and a forced fumble last week. He came through time and again, some big moments too, where he had those sacks. And it's 2 weeks in a row. 2.5 sacks against OU, 3 against Kentucky. It's not a fluke. We know how good Colin Simmons is, and we know that he is on a streak. Just like Simmons delivered for the Horns, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save more every time that you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Promo period through 11/18. And also some love to our friends at FanDuel. Oh yeah, the NFL season is here. We've got another great NFL weekend on tap, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets just like that. That's right. It's that simple. You pick a bet, you put down $5. If it hits, you're going to unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel makes watching football so much more exciting because you've got a little bit riding on the action. So whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into your stats, if you're locked into your favorite team, if you're locked into your fantasy team, doesn't matter. FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. And this is an offer that you do not want to miss. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com today. Download the FanDuel app to get started. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, final segment of a Friday show. 3 guys who need to step up for Texas tomorrow. I'm not talking about Arch Manning or Trey Wisner or Colin Simmons or Anthony Hill. Of course, those guys are important. Those guys need to play well. But I'm talking about a few fill-ins who are going to be out there because of some injuries to Texas starters. We'll start on the offensive side of the football with Connor Robertson, starting at center for the 2nd consecutive week. Cole Hudson has already been ruled out. No surprises there. You know, I was hoping, and I think every Texas fan was hoping, that Robertson would be an upgrade over Cole Hudson, since Hudson wasn't playing that well before he got hurt. Well, the grass isn't always greener. Robertson had a really rough go against Kentucky. 51.5 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus. That was the 2nd lowest for a Texas offensive lineman. He was ahead of Nick Brooks. That's not a very high bar to clear right now. How about a 30.9 pass blocking grade for Robertson? Gave up 5 hurries and 5 pressures against UK a week ago. We honestly didn't run block that much better either. He has to be better. He and Nick Brooks have to be better. The entire offensive line has to be better. Not breaking any news to anybody here. Mississippi State, they're going to throw all sorts of things at this Texas O-line. And Mississippi State's defense, a lot better than last year. They're giving up 16 points per game fewer in 2025 than they were in 2024. You're going to see twists. You're going to see stunts. You're going to see blitzers from different levels. They do a lot of zone blitzing anyways. It's not like breaking character for them. They're going to rush 4 or 5, but those 4 or 5 will be coming from different parts of the field on every play. That scheme confused Texas at times last year when they had a good offensive line. This year, it's been a disaster. And that's what Kentucky was doing. They had one linebacker literally blitzing from a different spot on every play, and the Texas O-line they didn't know what to do with it. So fix that. I mean, Sark on Monday talked about his guys needing to be able to react better when an opponent does something that maybe they didn't prepare for. That'd be nice. Kyle Flood, what are you doing? Stealing money right now. Where's the development here? I'd like to see Connor Robertson play well. He's going to be big on the road in a hostile environment. Over to the defense, of course, no Michael Taff, officially ruled out. So Derek Williams Jr. starting in place of Michael Taff. This is a well-known name for Longhorn fans. Top 70 recruit in the class of 2023. He's played a lot of football at Texas, played a ton as a true freshman, and he was actually set to start over Andrew Makuba in 2024. Had a big interception against Michigan. forced and recovered a fumble against Oklahoma, but got hurt, tore his ACL in that OU game. That obviously opened the door for Makuba to get more snaps, and he ran with him. He was fantastic, ended up being a second-round pick. Now he's making stuff happen on Sundays in Philly. It's been a bit of a process for Derek Williams to get back to playing time. Feels like the staff has been hesitant to give him a heavy role. They love Michael Taft. They love Jelani McDonald. How can he not? Those guys have been really good. But Derek Williams hasn't played a ton. He's averaging less than 12 snaps per game on the year. Obviously, that number is going to go way up with no Michael Taft. So I'm a believer in Derek Williams Jr. I think he's a stud. We'll see if he's fully healthy from that ACL tear. I'm expecting there not to be much of a drop-off at safety, and there can't be because Mississippi State loves taking some deep shots. And if Derek Williams isn't fast enough, or if he just gets beat by double moves, or if he ain't in the right spot, that could lead to some explosive plays that we don't want the Longhorn defense giving up. And then on that same note, Xavier Filsaime, former five-star in his second year at Texas. Didn't play much as a freshman, was hurt last week against Kentucky, but the second-year safety is back, and he's earned some more playing time this year. 25 snaps between the Florida and Oklahoma games. Versatile player. He can play in the box. He can play at nickel. He can play over the top, kind of as a roaming center fielder. He's got some talent. He's an easy guy to get excited about. 6'1", 194, touted as one of the most athletic safeties in his class for good reason. He's got some versatility to play a multitude of different positions. And look, it's going to be McDonald and Williams as your starter, but Filsaime is going to get some more run, obviously, with one less safety back there. So he's really important too. And the good news for Texas is those guys are good. Like, these two players are exactly the types of players that you would hope to have behind your stars. You got a mix of experience and reliability. You've got the younger, higher ceiling option with Xavier Filsaime. They're going to split snaps tomorrow. They're going to probably split some snaps next week against Vanderbilt, of course, with Jelani McDonald. And if all goes right, this Texas defense won't miss a beat. And you're going to miss Michael Taft. He's a stud. He's an All-American. He's your team leader in tackles. He's the heartbeat of your defense. So it's not going to be as good without him. But again, I think there's enough talent, there's enough experience, there's enough depth at safety to where we shouldn't see some tremendous drop-off from Texas on the back end. So those three guys, Connor Robertson, Xavier Filsaime, Derek Williams Jr., pretty important. Their roles are a lot bigger, and they're going to need to step up for Texas to get a huge road win. All right, that'll do it. Thank you for stepping up. If you made it this far, God bless you. Thank you very much for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, all of those great things. Would love your score predictions as well. I'm picking a 10-point Texas victory, by the way. Hopefully that comes to fruition. A win and a cover wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. We'll take that. Would love to hear from y'all in the comments below. Again, really do appreciate y'all making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day. For your next listen, check out Locked On Bets. Oh yeah, get ready for the football weekend. All of your college plays, all of your NFL plays, all of your NBA plays too. No Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier. You can't tune in. You're not allowed. Everybody else, you're good. They've got you covered. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you find your podcast. We'll have a post game either late tomorrow night or Sunday morning, talking about Texas and Mississippi State. Man, big one for Texas for a number of different reasons, but really appreciate y'all watching. That'll do it for today. Enjoy the game. Enjoy the weekend. Until next time, horns up, mics off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.